Hi, I'm Daniel Korschun, Associate Professor of Marketing at Drexel University. Thank you for joining the conversation. I'm here with Chelsey Hill. She's a fourth-year doctoral student in the Decision Sciences program. She's doing some really interesting work on defects in the automotive industry. Tell us a little bit about what your interests are and what your dissertation is shaping up to be.
Sure. So basically we are looking at kind of what happens before automakers make decisions about which defects to recall. Also we think about timing. So when are they recalling these defective products? And we also consider, when is the best time for them to do that? And we consider things like liability and also sales disruption and the actual costs of conducting these recalls. And then we also kind of think about in what way they recall. So what we're looking at are these two types of decisions, voluntary and proactive. So these are the kinds of decisions that we as consumers and as the general public think of as responsible actions. And we actually find that the consumer market, so people buying automobiles, they actually have a less negative reaction when they don't act responsibly. So it's kind of a weird result.
So you're looking at both the executive decision-making process and the consumer side reactions to these defects.
So we're looking at both the antecedents and the consequences of these decisions. So why do they make them? What are they making? What are these decisions? What goes into them making those decisions? But then also, what happens after? Because you have to also consider that what happens after is going to be motivating them to make those decisions. So why are they making these decisions? And so the entire dissertation kind of looks at that motivation.
And is there anything surprising that you find that you weren't expecting going into this process?
So we don't really find that timing has any kind of negative impact on the sales market. We find actually a slightly positive. And we find that in both cases in terms of these responsible actions. So, we want our automakers to recall their defects in a timely manner. We want them to do it voluntarily. We want them to do it before accidents happen, which is proactive. But it doesn't seem like consumers are really reacting negatively when they don't do it in a responsible way. So we had to kind of consider then why are over 80% of these recalls being done proactively and voluntarily. So that kind of motivates the consequences side and kind of making a model of total costs of recalls. So liability is a huge component in the total cost. So liability is kind of the main contributing factor in that cost, and it looks like that's probably what's making them act responsible.
I see. So the consumer pressure may be one of the factors, but the overwhelming factor, it sounds like, is the liability side, which could have then more indirect consequences towards consumers.
Exactly.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's great. Fascinating research. What drew you to Drexel in the first place? How did you end up here?
So I was getting my master's in business intelligence, and I was doing an optional master's thesis. And my advisor actually went through the Decision Sciences program. And we were doing research together on kind of business process change outcomes. And why, really what drew me to it is I was curious about why so often business process change fails. It's not highly successful. So it kind of didn't seem intuitive. We should want to change our processes. We should want to be more efficient and better. And we should want to change things with time. I mean, technology changes very quickly. So if nothing else, technological changes in those business processes need to happen. So why are they failing? So we did some research kind of specifically looking at resistance and the levels of kind of the employee and how resistance at each of those levels impacts the kind of success or failure of that. And she actually suggested that I might be a good researcher. So I applied, and actually now her advisor while at Drexel is now my co-advisor. So that's pretty much it.
What do you think are the keys to being successful in a doctoral program?
I think hard work. I think perseverance. I think you really need to want to learn, and you need to be self-motivated in doing so. You'll learn a lot in the classroom. You'll learn a lot for those first 2 years, but you will also need to teach yourself a lot of things. And I mean, especially if you're coming from a different background. So my undergraduate degree is in political science. So in terms of the courses I took at my liberal arts college, it wasn't math or science or kind of anything of that nature. So I kind of had the research skills, but a lot of the things that I wanted to learn, I ended up teaching myself. So I think you really need to be committed to not only learning, but continually learning and finding things to learn and finding the people who can teach you if they're available.
I think that's very similar to my experience as well, which is that you learn a lot during the classes, but you learn even more after the classes are done, and you really start digging in on projects with faculty members and fellow doc students.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Joining the Conversation.